Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. Following my previous video, which took a closer look at the Caliph Al-Mamoun's so-called forced entry into the Great Pyramid in the 9th century, many will have noticed a curiosity that needs further attention. That of a likely undiscovered vertical shaft at the junction between the descending and ascending corridors of the Great Pyramid. It all centres on what are called the Trial Passages, located just 87 metres to the east of the Great Pyramid and north of the causeway. When they were first examined by Howard Vyse and John Perring in the 1840s, they were believed to be passages from an abandoned, long-forgotten pyramid or tomb, possibly the underground passages of a fourth subsidiary pyramid of the Great Pyramid, but this certainly isn't the case. Sir Flinders Petrie was the first to point out how these passages are a very precise copy of the passages inside the Great Pyramid. He thought the pyramid builders had built them as a mock-up, a test run, and hence why they have been known ever since as the Trial Passages. The Great Pyramid does have a complex network of passages, but as no other pyramid has an associated trial structure such as this, was it really created for such a purpose? Did the Trial Passages have another reason? Surprisingly, eminent Egyptologists such as Mark Lehner and Zahi Hawass agree that there is a striking resemblance between the Great Pyramid and the Trial Passages, and for the first time, it seems that everybody is in agreement that the two are inexplicably linked. In his book, The Complete Pyramids, Lehner says, as Petrie recognised, these passages clearly are a kind of foreshortened copy of the passages in the Great Pyramid. Trial passage widths, heights and angles all mirror those in the Great Pyramid. There is a descending passageway, an ascending passageway, the start of the Grand Gallery and the beginning of the Queen's Chamber passage. Even specific details are not left out. For example, where the ascending passage meets the descending passage, it contracts, just as it does in the Great Pyramid, where the granite plug was fitted. Even around the beginning of the Queen's Chamber passage, there is a contraction for the plug blocks and the passageways are all finished as well as they are in the Great Pyramid. This is an important structure, and if it was just a trial, why would they bother to finish it so well? It was clearly built to stand the test of time, just like its pyramid counterpart. So why were the trial passages built? For a start, such a construction is unique to the Great Pyramid, in that there is no other trial passage system associated with an Egyptian pyramid, which to me discounts it being any sort of trial. If it was standard practice, we would find trial passages alongside every pyramid in Egypt. Orthodox Egyptologists believe that the Great Pyramid is 4th dynasty, and that many more prominent pyramids came before it. So even if the orthodox view is to be believed, building a trial passage in this instance is rather strange, as they had already been building pyramids for quite some time. So why was it necessary? Of course, I, like many other people, believe that the Great Pyramid, as well as all the Egyptian pyramids, are far older than the 4th dynasty. There is no evidence to suggest that the ancient people used trial passages to construct their monuments. Also, the Great Pyramid's so-called trial passages were all carved out of the Giza bedrock, whereas the majority of the corresponding passages inside the Great Pyramid were formed from masonry, so the same techniques were certainly not being trialled. There is no benefit of carving passages into bedrock if you are going to use a completely different method when building the pyramid itself. Why not just build a miniature version of the pyramid if it was a trial? Wouldn't that help the architect? The contraction of the ascending passageway in the trial passages would have been a very difficult feat to achieve, and virtually useless when repeating this feature with cut stone inside the Great Pyramid. I agree with researcher Mark Foster that these passages could never have functioned as trial passages. Yes, they were built to represent the internal layout of the Great Pyramid, the builders went to great lengths to ensure we could make the connection, but Mark Foster believes that the passages were less about a trial and more of a key to solve the puzzle of the pyramid. For such a key to work, we would have to be left in no doubt as to what the key was pointing to, which is the case in this instance. As noted in my previous video, Mark Foster believes that the Caliph Al-Mamoun had used the trial passages to calculate the position of the previously unknown ascending passageway in the Great Pyramid. A stone lintel, indistinguishable from the other roof blocks of the descending passageway, originally covered the entrance to this passage. This entrance was purposefully hidden from view by the pyramid builders, or potentially by a later people who sealed up the structure when it went out of use. No other pyramid has chambers reached by ascending up through the structure, and before the discovery of the upper chambers by Al-Mamoun, the experience of entering the Great Pyramid was no different from entering, for example, the Red Pyramid. Although its internal chambers are built into the masonry of the structure, they are reached by descending into the pyramid from the entrance. The Khafre and Menkaure pyramids also have chambers that are reached by descending into each respective structure. But thanks to Al-Mamoun's discovery, we know that the Great Pyramid is different, and due to the complex arrangement of internal chambers and passageways, the structure, although a mystery, is clearly the most important pyramid in Egypt, and it is no surprise that it is the only pyramid to have an associated so-called trial passage system. Before the discovery of the ascending passageway, it would take an intelligent mind to link the Great Pyramid to the trial passages. Although the angle of the trial descending passageway, as well as the width and height, were identical to those of the Great Pyramid, it was shorter, and also had a branching ascending passageway that at the time wasn't evident in the Great Pyramid. The trial passages, although well made, also led nowhere. They must have puzzled people for millennia, but it does appear that the Caliph Al-Mamoun was the first person to solve it. But how did he find the exact position if the trial passages were shorter? Well, it appears that the pyramid builders left us a code. There are a pair of scored lines carved into the walls of the Great Pyramid's descending passageway, which correspond with a similar sloping face at the top of the trial passage's descending passage. They both indicate a precise point in the structures. As noted, the descending passageway in the trial passages is far shorter, but as Mark Foster discovered, if you measure the distance between the scored lines and the beginning of the two descending passageways, you can work out the scale that was being used. Using this scale, you can precisely work out the beginning of the ascending passageway in the Great Pyramid. It was a deliberate code, and it appears that Al-Mamoun was the first to crack it. The Caliph's story about how he found the ascending passageway is certainly far-fetched. That he dug a tunnel into the Great Pyramid, heard a stone fall in the ascending passageway, dug in that direction, and luckily stumbled upon the entrance. I would suggest that he studied the trial passages, learned the secrets, and then searched the pyramid, keeping the secret knowledge of the trial passages to himself. Until Mark Foster published his article on thehereticmagazine.com, nobody knew the true purpose of the scored lines in the descending shaft of the Great Pyramid, and the flat surface of rock inclined at the same angle at the head of the trial passages. But due to the accuracy of the calculations that come from this, and how they can be used to find the ascending passageway, Mark, like Al-Mamoun, has certainly cracked this mystery. Of course, as Al-Mamoun removed the limestone lintel, he would have certainly been surprised to find the huge granite plugs in the ascending shaft. Yet another puzzle for him to overcome. But thankfully, he was successful in gaining access to the upper chambers of the Great Pyramid. Without his discovery, we would probably still be taught at school that the Great Pyramid, like the Pyramid of Khafre and Menkaure, had just a rock-cut subterranean chamber. But back in the 9th century, Al-Mamoun didn't reveal all of the secrets of the Great Pyramid. It was to be another 1,000 years, in 1872 to be exact, that the shafts that emanate from the walls of the Queen's Chamber were discovered. They were already documented in the King's Chamber, so Mr. Weinman Dixon inserted a piece of wire into a small crack in the wall of the Queen's Chamber to see if voids were also present there. He chiselled through both the north and south walls, revealing two 8-inch shafts. These shafts were hidden some 8 inches behind the wall, and also don't make it to the outside of the pyramid. Like the trial passages, were the shafts in the King's Chamber made simply as a guide to expose those in the Queen's Chamber? Was this their only function? What were the Queen's Chamber shafts hiding? Why were they built so precisely? And why did they have a dead end at each end? Of course, we know that both shafts have been explored, and what has been described as a door or portcullis with metal handles has been found inside the southern shaft, with a second so-called door behind it. Explorations of the northern shaft also revealed another door, and the truth is, nobody really knows their purpose, but maybe there is a way we can find out. The pyramid builders have left us many clues. For example, just before we reach the doors inside the Queen's Chamber passages, they are lined with fine Chura limestone, a material reserved for chambers and casing in the Great Pyramid. Therefore, this clue may signify further chambers higher up inside the structure. But what is the point in this if we can't reach the doors? The Queen's Chamber passageway is too small for human exploration. There must be another way up, and the layout of the trial passages gives us a glaringly obvious clue that there are certainly undiscovered chambers higher up in the Great Pyramid. The trial passages were built to focus our attention on the junction between the descending and ascending passageways. This is a clear focal point, as the trial Grand Gallery, Queen's Chamber passage and subterranean chamber are incomplete, yet the junction has an extreme level of accuracy that mirrors that of the Great Pyramid. So why have learned explorers, historians and Egyptologists completely ignored a huge vertical shaft emanating from this point? Does this also exist inside the Great Pyramid? The trial passages show that the vertical shaft is located slightly to the north of the beginning of the ascending passageway. Petrie believed that this shaft was merely a representation of the Great Pyramid's crude well shaft, but this makes no sense. The trial passage builders were so accurate in their Great Pyramid representation that assuming that this is the well shaft defies sense, and it is somewhat insulting to the ancient builders. The position is not even remotely close to the location of the well shaft in the Great Pyramid, and in my opinion, this is clearly representing another, as yet undiscovered shaft in the Great Pyramid that rises up vertically through the structure. Where it could lead to, nobody knows, but it certainly assumes the likelihood of undiscovered chambers higher up inside the pyramid. The vertical shaft may well be like the shafts that emanate from the Queen's Chamber, in that they are not designed to be found by accident, but by intelligence, knowledge and excavation. 8 inches of stone prevented access to the 2 Queen's Chamber shafts, so could the vertical shaft be hiding behind a similar amount of masonry? And there are further clues to back up the claim of chambers higher up inside the pyramid. If you travel up the ascending passageway of the Great Pyramid, you come across 3 enormous girdle stones, and are clearly present to add strength to the passage. These girdle stones only appear in this one specific section, but is this because there is a void, a hidden chamber or junction directly above it, and so the girdle stones were not needed along the entire length of passageway? Also, in the Queen's Chamber southern shaft, a large section of the shaft floor has broken away, as discovered by Rudolf Gantenbrink. At this point, the pressure on the shaft amounts to only 1/3 of the maximum value in and around the Queen's Chamber. This infers that there is an undiscovered structure either below or above this shaft section, focusing additional force on the shaft and causing the damage. There is also more evidence for new chambers higher up in the Great Pyramid outlined by Mark Foster in the article linked in the description below, and this was confirmed in 2017 when the world's media reported that the Scan Pyramids project had found a huge void above the Grand Gallery thanks to the observation of cosmic ray muons. Interestingly, the voids within the pyramid are exactly where you would expect them to be if there is indeed a hidden vertical passage. Both the small and large voids identified in the results could well link up with the shaft. The larger of the two is located around 40 metres from the floor of the Queen's Chamber and is around 30 metres in length, with a cross-section comparable to that of the Grand Gallery. Like the Grand Gallery, it could be inclined, or it could be horizontal. It could also be several adjacent structures, or one giant chamber. And although it may be not the best idea to speculate how the full internal layout of the Great Pyramid actually looks, Mark Foster offers this example, and I have to say, I agree. But I would actually go one stage further and hazard a guess that there is at least one more vertical shaft leading to another chamber in the upper reaches of the pyramid. As mentioned in a previous video, although a new pyramid robot is planned to investigate the new chamber, I think that efforts should be concentrated on the junction of the ascending and descending passage, to find the vertical shaft that must certainly exist. If the trial passages are indeed a key to the Great Pyramid, then the vertical shaft was certainly built to be found. And if the opening is hidden behind just a few inches of rock, then this could prevent more extensive drilling if the robot reveals something worthy of further discovery. Mark Foster believes that the most sacred object of the ancient Egyptians could be waiting to be discovered, the Benben stone, which was once kept at the Temple of the Phoenix at Heliopolis, which was located close to Giza. If you watched one of my previous videos, you will see how I believe that the Caliph Al-Mamoun took something from the king's chamber, but luckily he did not access the proposed vertical shaft. The trial passages were created as a key or a code to unlocking the Great Pyramid, and I believe that something was placed there and is waiting to be discovered by the people who crack the code. Soon, an exploratory robot will investigate the void above the Grand Gallery, but will it reveal the thing that was hidden, or will it just reveal the next part of the puzzle? Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.